Sure. My name is Lynn Charles, and we live in Madison, Connecticut.
Great. What is there a typical road trip that you take every year, or do you change it up?
Well, first of all, I want to say that we are tireless road trippers. We always insist on taking family trips in the car. The few times we've taken trips in a plane, we feel like it takes just as long, if not longer, and there are delays, and you don't have the opportunity to get off and stumble upon things and just find the unexpected. So I think from an early age, my kids have always been used to these incredibly long road trips in the car. And people say, how do you do it? And I say, I think it's just that has been always the expectation. We often go up to Moosehead Lake in Maine, which is about an 8-hour trip, which at this point doesn't seem like a long trip. Our biggest trip was out west to the Grand Canyon and beyond, and we went there in our little Honda Fit. It's a really small car, and there were 5 of us, and they were maybe like 10, 12, and 14 at the time. And that, I think, was by far the most memorable road trip.
When you go on a road trip, are there things that you always bring, or do you plan to stop along the way?
Are the things we always bring? Usually the day of the road trip, I'll remember to go to the library and get some books on tape. And I usually check out about 8 to 10 books, and actually maybe 1 or 2 of them actually works. It's got to be just right for a road trip and for everyone in the car. So it's really hard to find that one book, and I don't even think we've found a book that worked for everyone. I will say that trip out west, we listened to Jack Kerouac's On the Road, and I think it was just because of the name, On the Road. And there were a lot of inappropriate things in the book itself for my kids that they remember better than I do. That was pretty funny, that just the voice of Kerouac droning on about his derelict life.
Exactly. Now, what are your favorite kinds of places to stop?
Well, I always like to look at the history markers, but somehow we always see them and they've already passed by. So that's always a little problematic. My daughter, she can always find berries from, even from the fast-moving car. She'll say, "Oh my gosh, look at those, wild strawberries," or whatever. I think we always like the off-key places, the little diners. Just recently, we were in this, where were we? We were down in Virginia, and stumbled upon a diner straight out of the 50s. Even the color of the walls and the formica and the dents and the chips in the formica tables and the signs. It was just so nice. And the hash browns were the best, and the grits were, just something that it's not replicated at, a Denny's or whatever.
And how did you find it? Did you get off the interstate and go down a 2-lane highway, or was it on your way?
No, we were in the town of Manassas, and it was just a decision my husband just gets frustrated a lot with the GPS, and he said, "Don't worry, I will find us a place to eat. Just trust my sense of direction." And he will. He'll find that center of town, that kind of pulse point. And he did. And I think we probably would have never found it using the GPS. And I think you kind of have to exercise that muscle of, finding those neighborhoods, those streets.
You have to be a little adventurous.
Right, adventurous, and be willing to turn off the GPS and be willing just to
try a local.
Right, just to see what comes.
Exactly. And then what are some of the tips or tricks you've learned along the way that you think are good to share? Are there certain snacks that you always bring? Are there certain games that you might play?
I know. It's so funny how much things have changed. Like, when the kids were younger, and I think it mirrors their development, both as from childhood to teenagehood, but also the change culturally with technology. It used to be books and coloring books, and now they have devices, which kind of makes me wince. And what is it? What are some of the things we do? Kids, do you have any ideas about what works? I think a cardinal rule is when you stop anywhere, when you get in the car, you ask everyone, now, did you stop in the bathroom? Are you sure you went to the bathroom? Because I can't tell you how many times, as soon as we take off, a half an hour later, someone says, oh, I forgot to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. And what was your favorite trip as a family?
I would say it was this trip out west. There was, what was interesting was, and I can't remember why, but we went through northern Oklahoma on a 2-lane highway instead of the interstate. And the scenery was just so unexpected. And it was like trapped in time along that little road. And the signs and the billboards and just, the refineries and the derricks, and how it slowly changed from one geological formation to the more rugged and higher elevation. I really loved it. And I'd say, wow, we would have never gone to northern Oklahoma in a million years. The other place I really liked a lot was Chaco Canyon on that same trip in northwestern New Mexico. And someone had told me about it, that this was the largest archaeological site in North America. And that too was hard to get to on a dirt road way off in the middle of nowhere, obviously. But at one point it was the center of civilization on this continent, and that was interesting.